to the first of three budget meetings of the Skokie Village Board. I have this year, for the first time, I have a statement that I would just simply like to make addressing a particular concern of mine this year. This is the first time I've intruded on the staff's draft budget presentation by addressing my elected colleagues and the residents of Skokie. The village's finances are in good shape today. Considering the effects of COVID-19, the village has sprung back to several projects that had been in the planning stage before the pandemic put a halt to them. Economic development and infrastructure construction are proceeding. We have adopted a transforming sustainability plan, and shortly we will be considering low and moderate income housing policies. And our co-responder program is proceeding well. John, Nick, and Julian have prepared a solid budget proposal for our consideration, and I commend them for their effort as usual. It is a balanced and tight budget, however. We do need to be cautious as we proceed this year. You will note the manager's admonition in his budget message this year about the economy. Inflation and incremental interest rate increases, supply chain blitzes, banking instability, and the failure of Congress thus far to pass a debt limit resolution could combine to push us into a recession. Not surprisingly, there is no unanimity among economists about the future, but some have warned that a recession could come as soon as the third or fourth quarters of this year. The crystal balls are a little foggy at this point. The budget we will pass this year will be a snapshot based on Skokie's economy in April and May of 2023. And our projections for future revenue and expenses for the next fiscal year. But the warning signs are there. This is the situation that looms over us as we begin our deliberations for a new budget year. As we all know, the challenges of the national economy are beyond our control, but how we react to financial misfortune is within our purview. If a recession occurs, as some experts are warning, the manager, in consultation with the board, will need to make adjustments to the budget. And some of those measures may be drastic. We will need to closely follow events and prepare to take remedial, swift, and determined action. Hopefully none of this will come about. But then we didn't expect the Great Recession of 2008, 2011, and the COVID pandemic. We're still feeling the effects of those events. We worked our way through both of those challenges because we acted with determination from a plan devised by the management staff and the board. And I fully expect we'll do the same in the event a recession befalls us this year. And I just want to point out to everybody the opening paragraph of John's transmittal letter this year. I did not know until I saw the letter, like all of you, that John had been thinking along these lines. So I think that as we are preparing the budget this year, I think we simply have to keep in mind that hopefully there won't be any challenges, but if there are, John, Julie, and Nick, along with everybody here, will help guide the village through it. So with that, the budget overview, Nick.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. It's a privilege to present the proposed FY24 budget tonight for your consideration. I first would like to acknowledge the hard work of our department and division directors and their staff. I'd like to thank them for all the effort that went into preparing the proposed budget that's before you tonight. I'd also like to thank our village manager, John Lockerbie, for the leadership and direction that he provided throughout this entire process. Before we begin discussing individual department budgets over the course of the next 3 budget hearings, Finance Director Julian Prindy and I have prepared a brief presentation which summarizes the proposed FY24 budget. This presentation is intended to provide a broad overview of the proposed FY24 budget. Initiatives proposed within this presentation will be addressed in greater detail during individual department and division budget discussions. We first will begin by reviewing the village's budget goals. We will then provide an overview of the village's revenue profile, followed by a summary of expenditures for FY24 and a discussion on the village's long-range forecast. Time has been allotted to entertain questions or comments at the conclusion of the presentation, but trustees should feel comfortable interjecting at any point. The following 2 slides list the budget goals for FY24. These broad goals drive the budget process from start to finish and range from ensuring resident safety through providing exceptional services to maintaining responsible financial management to meet short-term budget requirements and long-term financial priorities, to the village's continued commitment to environmental stewardship and diversity, equity, and inclusion in all that we do. You will see these goals reflected throughout the department budget presentations during the budget hearings. And I've highlighted a few of the key words in each goal just to highlight the important parts of these goals. With that, I'll turn it over to Julian Prindy to give an overview of revenues for FY24.
Okay. Evening, Mayor, trustees. Thanks for this opportunity to go through our projections and proposal for next year. As Nick mentioned, I will walk you through the revenue portion of the presentation. We'll take a look at overall revenue breakdown for all of our funds, and then specifically for the general fund, to look at some key revenues and historically how they performed in the last few years. Spend a little time on fund balance projections, where we are today and what we think will be in the next 10 years. And then very briefly, we'll touch upon the water because it's a very important topic for this board. With that said, this is a pie chart that represents the total sources of revenue that we anticipate to collect this year. Total new revenue for fiscal 24 is just over 151 million. If you are comparing notes, that number is about 600,000 shy of total available revenue for the year. That because it's not including 613,000 in water fund balance use. So 151 in new money coming in and 613,000 in water fund balance. There's a lot of colors here and numbers, so without getting too much into the weeds, I just want to point out a couple of major points. You'll note the largest single source, again, year after year, we mentioned this, is sales taxes. 23% of our overall budget is funded by sales taxes at 34 million this year. A very sensitive source to the overall economy as we have experienced through the COVID pandemic. Moving down to service charges at 17%. That is not as large of allocation of the general fund. However, in the overall picture, that includes water revenues, and that's approximately 17 million of service charges through water. Moving down to interest and leases at 15%. That is overall interest, earnings, and then a couple of small leases that we have. This predominantly incorporates invested funds from the pension funds. At the end of the year, those are accounted all in our financials, so we include their revenue projections in here. And then I won't mention most of these. I will note property taxes at 10%. This is in the bottom left up there on the screen. Only 10% of the village's budget is funded by property taxes. And as we move, that number gets even smaller when we're talking about operations. Other revenue as a category, just for clarification, includes pension contributions from employees, insurance contributions from employees, and then some minor unrecognized, uncategorized sources. Other taxes likewise includes hotel, transfer tax, telecom, amusement, package liquor, the smaller revenue sources we collect locally. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but if there's any questions on revenue, please feel free to flag me down.
One quick question,
Yes,
not try to put you on the spot. Would you know in half of your head, what was your sales tax projection last year?
In the revenue or percentage?
Percentage, would you know? I'm sorry. I'm just wondering if this is up or down.
I do not, I would be surprised if it's very much. It's in the mid to high 20s.
Okay.
It's typically the same thing.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question, but on page 10, you refer to the change in the tax, that started January 1st, 2021, and I think that had to do with online sales.
That's correct. So that refers to the leveling of the playing field act that the legislature passed and made it effective January of 21, essentially pushing the full local tax rate on not all online transactions, mostly marketplace facilitators, the Amazons, the eBays, and the Etsy's, and so forth, and then certain online retailers that meet thresholds of transactions. I think it's over 100,000, 200,000 in amount, and then over 200 transactions quarterly. So if a retailer meets either of those definitions, then they're required to collect the full local tax rate for to those shipped transactions.
Do we know how much that's helped us over since January 1st of 2021?
We do not.
Oh,
And the assumption is that the majority of the help we've seen is for a combination of that and the COVID, post-COVID surge.
people going
Essentially.
back to retail.
But it's difficult with the reporting we get from the state to single out online retailers. Essentially, everyone looks as if they have a location. In our reports, everyone looks as if they're required to file the same ST1 tax form that the brick and mortar locations file. So it's difficult to find out. But the assumption is, and as you'll see, we'll cover more sales, specific sales taxes. The increase since the lows of COVID have been a combination of both post-COVID surge and online being taxed at COVID.
I just know that we were in a downward trend.
That's and that we'll cover that a little
All
more.
right, sorry.
No
Didn't mean
problem.
to jump the-
This chart represents specifically revenue allocated to the general fund. As you recall from discussions we've had in the past, we fund our general fund on an allocation model. Essentially, we target every other priority that we need to fulfill, namely pensions and capital, and then allocate remaining revenue to the general fund. And our allocation decisions are here for you to see. What was 20-some% in overall revenue becomes even a larger portion in the general fund, with 38% going to operations. That combined with income tax at 12%, you can see funds 50% for operations. Extremely sensitive to economic fluctuations and changes. 50% of our funds come from sources that could experience declines year over year without moving. The rest of the revenue sources are just a breakdown. I will note also here that property taxes now has dropped to 5%. So only 5% of the village's operations are funded through property taxes. It's just over $3 million.
That's a decrease from around 6.2.
It is a decrease because the majority of it now is going towards pensions and debts. But again, property tax collections have remained flat. It's just a matter of allocating those funds.
And so the average property tax bill for homeowner and commercial is about 6% of the tax bill comes state bill.
This question came up recently with a couple of the other communities around us. Is the percentage of people who are paying their property taxes as assessed remaining at 99%, or is it declining?
I don't know that it's declining. It does fluctuate very little year after year. We assume a 3% uncollectible in our projections.
That's a new super about
97%. It changes very little. Through the COVID pandemic, it did dip in the 96 range. But I think since then, the 1 year we have from the full COVID pandemic, we got to 97. It stayed there for as long as I can look at the 3%.
3% then go for sale or whatever they call it.
When they become delinquent property taxes, they're stay out there until action is taken by the county.
No, just a lot of it.
But in order to account for that, we have a write-off percentage that we add to the property tax essentially, we have never collected 15.4, even though our levy is 15.4. We collect below that. The county adds on top of it a few $100,000 to bring us to 15.4. But even with that percentage, we have never been at 15. We're always at below the levy limit.
Even now with the new assessment that went out.
The assessment is irrelevant to us. We levy a fixed amount. So, you know, it doesn't matter what the property value is. The village levies 15.4, and that's it.
I wish I was paying a fixed amount.
Yeah. We'll pass on the information District 219.
Yeah, mention my name.
I have a question about retail sales. And that is, do we have any assessment yet of how Westfield's doing? Because of course there were people who were and are concerned that the 1% increase would drive people away from shopping in Westfield. Do we have any idea how they are doing? Because obviously we did that because we want to drive business into Westfield.
I can tell you without getting into specifics that we have not seen a dip in sales at Old Orchard from the implementation of business district. We have not seen it.
Okay, great.
Okay. Two more back. Okay. So now we're going to look at a few of these key revenue sources and how they performed over the past 5 years. You've seen this chart before. This is monthly sales tax collections now going to January 2017 through December of 2022. And this is month of sale data. This is not when we get it. This is when the actual sales transaction occurred. A couple of things to note here. The green bars are the months, and you can see how the seasonality repeats itself. You have a peak every 12 months, and that's December. And then you have the dip below, which is either January or February. The blue line represents a rolling 12-month average. We use that blue line essentially to capture trends, to avoid seasonality and to see what the trend line is doing. What Trustee Sucker was referencing, up through April of 2020, that starting at the leftmost beginning and then up through April of 2020, that line has a relative negative slope. So it's pointing downward, and that's what we had identified in the past as a 2% year over year for same month sales. And then COVID pandemic happened. You can see that line dipping significantly down. So from April of 2020 and through 2021, the numbers are pretty small. Through April of 2021, that trend goes down. Starting in April of 2021 and then through December, you can see that slope has now gotten positive and it's trending upward. So a couple of things are happening here is our suspicion. The dip of the pandemic is clear, but what swung us up is very likely surplus funds from the feds that were distributed. So your stimulus checks, essentially. Folks stored them initially, and then as restrictions began to lift, they went back, angry at the Old Orchard and the Targets and the Walmarts and spent. On top of that, that April of 2021 coincides with the very first month that we have data from the January of 21 tax law change. So both of those effects combined are showing that trend upward. We do not believe that trend to be realistic going on. That is a strange high rate of increase that we do not think will continue to see. Again, with this inflationary environment going on, with the financial crisis that some economists say is looming, high inflation, massive layoffs at the tech center, financial and tech industries, we don't think that is sustainable. So our planning going forward is not that trend. Just we are not planning that sales taxes will do that going forward.
You think it's going to stay start to flatten off?
Yeah, we're assuming a correction will happen in the next 2 years. So essentially we will lose base, and then from then on, we will see some sort of stabilized trend. So when we refer to stabilized revenue, we have captured the online activity. That is what had led us to that downward trend. We have solved that problem. Thank you to the state that problem is solved. So that essentially has stabilized our growth But we are taking into account that some correction is happening in the next 12 to 24 months.
Is it fair to say historically the sales tax has grown, prior to these unusual 2007, 2008, COVID, that it typically grows about 2%?
Yes, thank you, John. That had been the trend that we had seen going back many, many years, up until the online e-commerce and online marketplaces began kind of gathering steam. We had seen a 2% brick and mortar traditional increase here. And a variation of that is what we're assuming. This is another slide that deals with sales taxes. Essentially, this compares the last 5 years by color. So each color represents 1 year, but we've aggregated the data monthly, so you can see. You can also capture the seasonality. The red line here is 2018 through 2021 average. And we've done that so that you can compare the darkest blue, which is 2022, with a 4-year average. So that gap is how much better the revenue performed in 2022. Again, unrealistic and unlikely to continue, but this has been what we've seen so far.
I think the red is more realistic.
No, the red is just the average over the last 5 years.
I think that is what, do you think that will maintain?
We believe we are looking at somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7% growth in the sales taxes after we make a correction essentially for whatever is happening in the economy in the next 2 years. So moving on from sales tax, this is food and beverage sales. Again, we try to pick sources that are sensitive to the economy. So unlike sales taxes, the prior several years of the food and beverage tax, since we implemented it, had a positive trend. That was going up between 2 and 3% every year, so we could see the slope here. And then again, COVID hit. You can see the dips, this line trends down. As restrictions get lifted, the source has returned to normalcy. But you can tell in the last few months, it has started to flatten again in a slope that matches what it was doing prior to the COVID pandemic. This is again another one of those sources that we anticipate between 1.5 and 2% growth going forward. One more, hotel tax, perhaps the worst impacted source from the pandemic. The gap is significant. I point out the seasonality of this. Again, summer, high travel season, winter, low hotel occupancy. So we anticipate this to not hit the highs, the pre-pandemic highs, for another 3 or 4 years. This year, I think we're planning about 1.8 million in revenue from hotel taxes. Once the downtown hotel comes online, obviously now we're talking another 400,000 or 500,000 hotel taxes that will make this slide look much better in the future. But as of now, this again has been the slowest source to rebound.
Have the hotels and like their events long back up to like before the pandemic, like weddings and
so it's hard for us to say. We do get food and beverage returns from especially the DoubleTree, which is an indication for us of how much events they're doing, and their food and beverage is doing good. So we can say that they are probably one of the only ones that are capturing the most food and beverage or event-based activity. Although I should say,
What about the
Holiday
Holiday Inn
Inn is
too?
doing very
We
good
used to
as
do
well.
huge business, right?
very
what
good.
about, wasn't there supposed to be a place at 8,000 where the
At the hotel, it will be.
oh, that
Hotel.
It'll be a hotel and conference and
oh yeah. I thought also people could do parties on the at the 8,000.
so they can, so the rooftop, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The rooftop of 8,000 North, there's a combination of outdoor and indoor space, and it's available for the residents to use. They can
But
host
only
events.
residents.
And outside.
And the village also, in our agreement, requested 12 opportunities per calendar year where we could use the space. So we also have that available to us.
Which means you're planning a party. Thank you. Just let us know.
Yeah.
He's waiting for your birthday.
We'd like to include this mostly because of the anomaly that it is that through the pandemic, there was absolutely no hiccup in the real estate transfer tax. Looking at this only, you would miss that historical context. Again, this is not a very big source. It is a source that funds most of our economic development efforts. You can see these very large spikes. Those are big commercial and industrial sales, and we can count on 2 or 3 of those every year to boost up the economy. As a matter of trend, like this is not necessarily concerning. This is just coming up from this really high month here. So we anticipate this to be a flat between 1.4, 1.5 million every year. So all of that discussion on revenue, when we put all that together and project it out for the next few years, we'd like to see what the impact will be on our general fund balance. And this will come more into focus as Nick covers expenditures, and then we talk about the long range financial plan. But in this chart, the blue line represents the village's 25% target, green represents fiscal 24 ending balance, and then blue represents anything at policy level or target, yellow below, and that red obviously means negative. So we are projecting to close the fiscal year at 34.2, and I will remind the board that the general fund balance is the first and essentially most valuable tool we have in fighting off a recession or economic fluctuations. For context, 34% is approximately sufficient to fund 5 months of village operations with no revenue. That includes payroll and vendor checks and insurance and so on. So we looking at the next 10 years, we anticipate to be above that policy level through fiscal year 27, but we do plan on deficit projections for years 25, 26, and 27, which is why that those stacks start to dip downward. Starting in fiscal 28, we officially go below policy level at 23%, and then between 28 and 31, again, we remain below policy but positive. Fiscal 32 and 33, we project negative overall general fund balances. And I will remind the board again that this is an academic exercise. We cannot operate in a negative fund balance, but if everything works as we think it will work, without any action from management or this board, that's the result.
Are the bond ratings based on the general fund percentage?
The bond ratings do take into account the percent of general fund balance. The fund balance as a percent of the general fund. Yes, that's a big criteria issue.
Is the number 25%?
There is no fixed number in the bond ratings. The higher, the better. Our bond rating discussions with all 3 of them, Fitch, Moody's, and S&P, when we discussed, because of our reliance on economically sensitive, the higher this number, the more favorable they look upon it. There are communities around us that target 30%, 40% fund balances as a matter of policy. So this is unfortunately one of those, the more the better situations.
That's the village previously.
It's hard to tell looking at historically. It does fluctuate. It does move up and down. We have been as low as 15%, 14% during
During the recession, we were below $8 million.
So it has swung. Again, through that COVID, through the post-COVID rush, through the sales taxes we have seen, we are fortunate to have built it up to 34%. But that also means that it's extending our dip essentially some few years out. At 25%, we would be talking negative fund balance within the next 3 or 4 years as opposed to the next 10. So
There are some taxing districts within the community that have 100%. They prefer to have 100% of their operating budget fund balance. Where this has come into play, fund balance of late, is when property taxes were delayed. And so there were some taxing entities that actually had to take a loan in order to bridge the gap. And so part of our financial plan to have a fund balance so that we can handle our responsibilities and And we've debated through the years, should it be 40%? Some of the communities that have sales taxes as high as we do have that fund balance at 40%. But targeting 25% is the right place for us to.
And we'll discuss more about fund balance as we go into the
I think the other part that goes into the discussions in advance of today is our financial planning model. For years, we tried to control our expenditures to be less than 4%. If you start to chase revenue, then we're not stable and we can't withstand the ups and downs. And so, as a general rule, the village has had a philosophy of trying to get 4% or less in annual growth, which is a very challenging, considering insurance costs and some of the rising commodity costs and so forth. But just as another financial plan.
Okay, moving on to the water fund for just a few minutes. Total water fund revenues for the year are projected at 16.9. As the board may recall, last year we proposed a 3-year phasing in of revenue and expense ratios for the water fund, which also came in with a 3-year phase-in approach for water rate increases. In that discussion, we talked about a higher increase in year 1 and then 7.5% for this year and the next. So based on that discussion, based on what we see expenditure requests to be this year and need for capital, we are proposing a 7.5% increase over the prior year. That's about 43 cents per 100 cubic feet. The minimum water bill at 1,000 cubic feet would go up by 432 to 61.88. The revenue increase would be about 1.2 million in new funds. We're also projecting this fiscal 24 to be the first year of lead line service line replacements. So again, you cap residents' cost at $3,000. They do have to pay us because we are paying the contractor the full cost. We anticipate the majority of those will come through water bill, not as upfront payments. So that is projected to bring in just over $350,000 annually, and that amount will slowly increase year after year as we collect for more and we have more floors to collect for residents. However, even with the rate increase and the new lead line, we do not project sufficient revenue for the water fund, which necessitates $613,000 in fund balance. This is something the water fund balance can sustain, and we are projecting that's 7% this year. Proposing that's 7% this year.
And where is the federal money?
For the lead line replacement, it is not included in this.
Where is it included? Not in the budget at all.
It is not in the budget because of the timing of it. I don't think we had confirmation. But the plan is to do more lead lines.
Right. We're working through the grant document.
Yeah.
So the particulars of how it can be spent and so forth will be finalized. So it'll either be in added later to this budget, or it may be in future budgets depending on the spending time. Because it's part of it is we have to plan the water main projects and the service line associated with it, or will it be service lines not associated with the water main projects?
But is the money coming in at different times?
No, we'll receive. I anticipate it will be a reimbursement grant.
Oh.
But they won't give you a grant till they see that you executed some of the work and you have to.
Yeah. By the way, there's one question about the lead line that I don't remember we talked about. The debt, does it follow the person or the home? Okay, so it stays.
Well, the goal will be to capture the debt at that real estate transaction. So if
I'm saying,
someone
are we
sells,
going to collect it at closing? Any outstanding debt?
We will attempt to collect it at closing.
I love it. Thanks.
It'll become an outstanding charge on the water bill. So practically speaking, when someone goes to sell their home and the attorney comes in to buy the transfer tax, we will say there is a balance on the water bill of $2,000. If that's what remains. So barring legal challenge, that's the approach we're taking.
I said we're covered. I said we're covered.
And we are making the homeowner sign. The way that it is.
Thank you.
And I should note again that even with the proposed rate increase, Skokie's water rate remains very competitive among area communities, as indicated in this chart. The blue line here, I should say, we compare with approximately 15 other communities. And this is the same list that we repeat year after year for consistency. The blue line represents the total water bill per 1,000 cubic feet. You can see the village highlighted in green here at 61.88. And I'll note a couple of things. Again, we are very low. And number two, we are the only town now that does not nickel and dime our residents with fixed fees or any other charge. The red here represents a fixed fee. Some towns call it an access fee. The brown represents a sewer charge. Blue is obviously water. And then this light yellow represents a stormwater charge. This has become a very common added on fee. It is something that the village may have to consider in the near future. We do have a stormwater task force that is meeting and reviewing issues and possible solutions. Depending on the approach that they recommend and the level of capital that's required to make improvements to the town, we will be bringing before the board any recommendation that ensues, which may well include that we pursue some sort of a stormwater charge. That's something that we'll do. And with that, it's going to take over the next comment.
All right, thanks, Joanne. Now I'll do an overview of expenditures for FY24. The village's total overall proposed budget for FY24 is just under $153.5 million. As highlighted in this chart, the village's budget is made up of a number of separate budgets known as funds. Each fund is independent and serves a specific function. The general fund constitutes the largest portion of the village's budget, funding the majority of services that we provide to the community. The general fund will be discussed in greater detail shortly. The pension fund is the next largest budget, comprising the village's 3 pension systems of fire, police, and IMRF. Budgeted figures for police and fire pensions represent actual pension payouts to retirees for the upcoming fiscal year, rather than the contributions made to the public safety pension funds. The water fund budget includes the purchase of wholesale water from the city of Evanston, overhead costs associated with the village's water and sewer systems, as well as capital investments to adequately maintain the village's water and sewer infrastructure, including the new lead service line replacement program. The tax increment financing, or TIF fund, includes the downtown science and technology TIF, the West Dempster TIF, and the Oakton and Niles TIF district. The buildings, equipment, and fleet budget maintains existing village vehicles and village-owned facilities. And finally, of note, the other funds represented in the chart above include the North Shore Center for the Performing Arts, Community Development Block Grants, the North Shore Convention and Visitors Bureau, among others. The village's general fund budget includes the majority of services that we provide to the community. This chart illustrates the village's operations by function or department. The total proposed general fund for FY24 is approximately $66.2 million. And as is common in most municipalities, public safety represents the majority of general fund expenditures. The big 3 core service departments of police, fire, and public works account for approximately 71% of general fund expenditures, non-inclusive of their corresponding burden to the group insurance budget. The FY24 general fund is increasing by just over $2.5 million. These increases are shown on this slide and are largely a result of 4 factors: employee health insurance increases, the village having a younger workforce who are still receiving annual step wages increases every year, and unfreezing a number of positions. Implementing new and important village board priorities, including the new sustainability plan. And finally, of note, today's high inflationary environment that has impacted the village's contracted costs. Of note, the recycling, tree pruning, vehicle part, and spoils hauling contracts alone have increased by over $485,000. As you can see, without these increases, the general fund would have decreased by $40,000. The following chart illustrates personnel-related expenditures accounting for the overwhelming majority of the village's operating budget. In total, 84% of the general fund is tied to salaries and insurance costs. As part of our strategy to control costs within the general fund, the village continues to generate significant savings from the hiring freeze that was implemented first during the Great Recession and then during the COVID-19 pandemic. As noted on the previous slide, the village's FY24 budget unfreezes 3 firefighter positions and adds a sustainability coordinator. However, 43.5 positions remain frozen or eliminated, achieving a $3.55 million savings in FY24 alone.
How many years to close it?
43.5. So since 2008.
Right, yeah, since there is.
The village's capital improvement budget represents investments in the equipment, facility, and infrastructure resources that the village needs to provide services to the community and which generally provide future benefits with a long service life. The total CIP budget for FY24 is just over $24.1 million. This chart segregates capital improvements by category. Notably, public improvements represent street, sidewalk, and other public infrastructure projects, while utilities represents investments in the village's water and sewer systems. I would also like to note that village staff anticipates procuring over $8.5 million in federal, state, county, and grant funds over the course of the FY24 budget. A more detailed conversation of the FY24 CIP initiatives is expected during the Public Works Department budget hearing next Tuesday. The FY24 proposed budget includes $670,000 of investments to fund the continued implementation of the recently updated Skokie Environmental Sustainability Plan. Notably, this includes the creation of a sustainability coordinator position to advise and assist the village's environmental sustainability action team in the ongoing task of implementing the plan. Additional notable sustainability initiatives included in the FY24 budget include $199,000 for a hybrid and electric police vehicles in the police department, $147,000 for tree plantings, which will allow for 75% more trees to be planted throughout the community. $80,000 to continue upgrading the village's street light grid to LEDs, and a number of other projects that will be discussed in greater detail during the individual department budget hearings and are noted at the bottom of this slide. I would like to note that many of the goals and actions of the sustainability plan do not require budgetary dollars, but do entail a significant time investment of village staff, community partners, and other stakeholders. There are over 30 village staff members representing every village department on the environmental action team, and they are already hard at work implementing the plan. An important initiative that continues in the FY24 budget is the street resurfacing program, albeit at less miles than in previous years. The village is responsible for maintaining a total of 143 miles of streets in the community, and engineering staff recommend a 20-year life cycle for village on streets, meaning that a goal of 7 miles of streets should be resurfaced each year. However, with the street resurfacing costs increasing by more than 35% over the last year, and now costing $1.2 million per mile, the village is only able to resurface 3.8 miles of streets.
How much did you
Wow,
say
did
it
they
cost?
jump?
Costs,
Really?
yeah, 1.2 million per mile.
It's
Not long ago,
Astounding.
It used to be 500,000.
500,000-600,000.
No, it's-
No, I know, it's still astounding.
Yeah,
last year was 850,000.
right, but it's been.
There are no other sustainability efforts rather than surfacing like that? Is there? Like sustainability efforts.
Efforts to reduce the miles of street resurfacing. Well, you know, and Max and our public works department had noted that with the reduction of twice-a-week garbage pickup, that could possibly help eliminate some of those trucks on streets and the need for resurfacing of the streets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another contributing factor, though, is that we are starting to resurface more concrete streets throughout the community. There's still, you know, in the Skevinston area, there's still some of the original concrete streets from almost 100 years ago. And those are, have a much longer service life, but they also cost almost twice as much per mile than asphalt.
The Crawford Avenue design, that's a Cook County roadway, but that design is designed to be sustainable, like that's being applied for green space to be maintained in the parkways and so forth. So that was one of the guiding principles for that design.
You know, there's Max has looked at impermeable streets, but the science isn't out yet on those, and obviously they're much more expensive than even the concrete streets.
On the impermeable alleys, they cost what? 250,000 per quarter mile.
So yeah, they're very expensive. I don't have the exact dollars, but yeah, it'd be 3 or 4 million per mile.
Weren't we getting those like grants?
We were through the Water Reclamation District. And so that when we get those grants, we're able to do those, but it's hard to really justify the dollars going to the alleys when they're that expensive.
I know, but they sure are that.
When they did the paving to go to Niles from Evanston, what kind of streets did they put in? Concrete?
They replaced what was their asphalt for the most part. They made a few concrete.
I think
I think they replaced what was there previous.
they only replaced.
Because there are some parts that are concrete.
Because I've seen some concrete.
So they did use the impermeable alleys when they went through alleys. They did upgrade the alleys to those.
Wait, so what are the factors for this cost increase?
So a 35% increase in the cost of doing asphalt streets, and then the fact that we are doing more concrete streets. So they cost more than asphalt streets. That's what
The 35% increase is due to
the cost of the material, labor costs.
Wouldn't that have to do with oil prices too?
Oil.
Yeah, oil.
So there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Those costs are bid out. Essentially, it's what we're seeing in the bids that we're getting.
Through the years, we've developed different ways to try to maximize the cost. We used to kind of spread everything out, and now there's a kind of advantage to maybe doing a few clumps in town, and so there's economies of scale, and so we've really worked hard to try to keep that cost to a minimum. The streets are expensive.
In the last three previous fiscal years, we had a significant grant from the state of Illinois that we used to get to those 7 miles, but those are no longer, that's no longer available. So rebuild Illinois.
$4.5 million we received from the Rebuild Illinois program, and I think we used about $1.5 million to achieve the rest.
Last year, we used $200,000 in general fund revenues, general revenues to go to streets, and this year we had up to that 1.3 million in general revenues.
What about motor fuel tax?
Motor fuel tax and local fuel tax also goes into, those are the three: general revenues, local fuel tax, and motor fuel tax that goes into resurfacing. Yeah. So, with all that being said, as we do expect that prices will stabilize. So as they do, we'll look for a long-term funding strategy to get up to that 7 mile goal that we need to do.
There is an upside to recession, but usually prices go down. So,
And we
we're
get
not
more
hoping
roads.
for one, but
The following slide illustrates notable equipment replacements planned in FY24. Included in this CIP are the replacement of a fire rescue truck and 53 firefighter breathing apparatus replacements in the fire department, the replacement of a refuse truck and the continuance of our annual refuse and recycling car replacement in the public works department, and the purchase of 3 hybrid patrol vehicles and 1 fully electric investigations vehicle in the police department. These projects are consistent with the village's long-term fleet and equipment replacement goals.
And I know we'll probably get into this more. We need to read a little deeper. I know we kind of looked at that electric refuse truck. Whatever happened with that?
So we had a pilot, we had it on site, and we tried it out, and it worked well. There's slight nuances, the height in the back where the tow controller was a little bit higher, and so the employees noticed that, of course. But we're pursuing refuse truck, but it's 2.5 years out. time is so far in the future that it's unusually long for sure. So we know that Lakeshore, we met with Lakeshore recently, they're our recycling hall. They have been able to secure a couple of vehicles, so refuse vehicles. And so we're going to be monitoring their experience. New York City is really the place that we've looked at that has had some experience with it. We're concerned about the battery power to last for the full shift. Concerned about the battery power during the winter and then the ability to run. So those are some of the areas that we're researching, but we want to have one so we can experience firsthand. It's just a long time away. It's about double the cost.
I was going to mention, well, it wouldn't be the budget officer. I did mention the idea that twice as much, and you probably have to get another truck to help with plowing, because right now we use the refuse trucks.
Have you also made to research how you replace, how much it costs to replace the battery?
Yes.
And what you do with the battery when you have to, I mean, I'm curious about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Replace the battery, it's a lot of detail.
Was mentioned about installing a charging station in Public Works garage.
Yeah.
Ideally, like how many stations do they need? Like,
We are, they're having a consultant come in and doing a study, but we thought that it'd be prudent to go ahead and put one in there as we're adding more electric vehicles to our fleet. So I don't know the right number, but I'm sure that's going to be in there over the course of the next several budgets. We'll put more and more charging stations in non-motive garage.
With the electric refuse truck, how long does it take? You'd have to charge it every shift. How long does it take to charge one of those? If it takes an hour to charge a regular auto.
I remember now how long it takes to get it fully charged. There are quick charge options, and then there's the slower charge options with different manufacturers that have them. That we had how long it took. But it's a component of if you need to go to the transfer station twice, and that can get factored into the life of the battery for that shift. As opposed to more typical we take to go once, but as we change our refuse pickup.
Yeah, that whole, I have a friend who's into the battery business. What they're trying to do is create these batteries just like we use in our flashlights, an interchangeable battery that can work, you get an extra battery, go in instead of charging the battery. So the technology is going to, it's going to continue to elevate.
Right when we get one thing, it'll change.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, my grandmother would always say, what do they think of next? But it's ever changing. So in 2 years from now, it's so many things are going to be different.
All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Julian for discussion on the long range forecast.
Thanks. So we discussed a little bit about revenue, a little bit about expenditures, and then we talked about the fund balance a little bit. Again, when we get together and talk budget and shine our crystal ball and look at the next, several years, it's difficult to make projections for what's about to happen. I don't think that we can look back and say, yeah, we got that one right or got that one wrong. Things changed. COVID was unexpected for anyone. So with that in mind, taking a kind of gauge of where the economy is today, what we're hearing from the banking sector, and with this influx of cash and banks having to write down their balance sheets, we're concerned, and our concern is projected here in the long-range financial plan. Looking at historic revenue for sales taxes as an example, we can say that we're looking at stable revenue going forward, but we do have to account for a correction in the next 12 to 24 months based on the economy. So looking out, I think we can annualize our sales tax growth to just below 2%, 1.8, 1.9%. Similarly with income taxes, use taxes, between 1 and 1.5%. We feel in a recession, will be job losses will increase, unemployment is likely to increase, tax returns for income, both on the corporate side and individual, are likely to get impacted. Even though on a lag, we're likely to see a large impact. So a slower growth on income and use taxes. Food and beverage, as we said, we've had experience with them locally, and we're comfortable with the 2% projection going forward. Between 1.7 and 1.8 for all other revenues, so all other taxes based on our experience for the past several years. General fund expenditures, on the other hand, we project a composite 2.58% growth rate in the out years. That's a combination of 2.5% personnel increases, 3% healthcare, and some other factors that we built in there. I should mention on healthcare, again, it has been all over the place. There were times in the past where we were anticipating increases, and as a matter of fact, for a couple of years, we ended up with reduced claim costs. And then COVID happened, and we were anticipating reduced claim costs, and we ended up with increases just because of the nature of the pandemic and what the strain that it put on the healthcare industry. So you see again this year, 800,000 increase in our budget. Those are unpredictable but manageable. Our healthcare budget is about 10 million. 2-3% difference in a $10 million budget is certainly a lot different than 2-3% difference in a $45 million budget, which is our personnel cost. So unpredictable but manageable is what we like to refer to those. Continued investment in capital, where we can, again, push funds toward student servicing. 1.3 million in general fund dollars this year alone, up from 300,000 next year. And where revenue permits, we'll continue to do that. Stabilized pension funding through the pension obligation bonds. I haven't mentioned this so far this evening, but our investment in pension obligation bonds was, in my view, a success. We hit the market just at the right time. We landed interest rates just below 3% for the large portion of the POBs. And then within 2 weeks, the markets went crazy and those rates essentially doubled. We issued those in February of last year. We did not turn over the funds to the police and pension boards, to the consolidated funds at that time. At the recommendation of our financial advisor, we held on to the funds, and then we did what's called dollar cost averaging. We put 1/12 of that amount of money into the fund each month. Again, another fortunate decision because the markets have been extremely volatile. There was a significant drop. So we are fortunate not to have put all that money in and essentially lost it at once. The markets continue to be volatile. Last year, when we made the issue and recorded the revenue in the pension funds, we achieved just below 90% funding with that decision. And the reason why it wasn't 90 is because the funds already lost a little bit of money that they had through April of 2022 at the time. So we don't know yet where the funds will end up this year. We anticipate they will have slid from the 90% target again because of the market. As of the most recent projection I have, fire is down 9 million on their investments, and the police is down just about 7 million on their investments. Markets have been very volatile, as you're well aware, looking at your own report ones and so on. So, however, we did set aside about 13.6 million, just as a reminder, which is a stabilization fund last year. We were able to invest that fund, and as of the end of this current fiscal year, fiscal 23, we have increased that amount to 15 million. So we have 15 million in reserve, targeted at capturing liability increases in both police and fire pensions. It is very likely by the end of this year or the next that we will have to insert some more cash into the pension funds to maintain funding as close to 90% as possible. What is done for our long range is that it has kept our general dollars that we dedicate to pension funds relatively fixed. Our bond repayment is fixed. Our contribution to the funds essentially covers only new benefits that are added year after year, and that number doesn't change. Typically, it's based on the workforce, and we know what that would be. So pensions are now predictable and manageable. And as Nick mentioned, 43.5 positions continue to remain frozen. That has been a tool management has used successfully in the past, and we maintain that to $7 million worth of savings. So Taking all of that into account and looking forward for the next 10 years. Again, the chart you have seen in the past. The red line here represents expenditures, the green line represents revenues, and then the light yellow greenish tint line represents the fund balance. It is difficult to tell because those lines are overlapping there, but as mentioned in the fund balance discussion, we operate at small minor surpluses for fiscal 24 and 25, but return to deficit spending in fiscal 26. That essentially means expenditures exceed revenues by as much as $1 million in 26, and then going up to 2 million, 3 million in 28, 29, and so on and so forth. See the dip in fund balance, projecting it to be into negative territory by about 7 million or so at the end of that 10-year period. Again,
And these are general funds, CIP, and pensions.
that's correct. Yes, I should have mentioned that. This is not our overall budget. So specific funds we don't really include in here. We're primarily concerned with operations, general fund, capital, and then our pension. So all of those here combined, revenue and expenditures. So yeah, an academic exercise to some extent, but it just gives the board an idea that if indeed our projections come to fruition, if what we think is going to happen does end up happening, this is what we're looking at without management or the village board taking any action. We have about 2 years before we turn to deficit. Questions, discussion?
Juliet, I just want to thank you for Nick, this is a lot. And I know you guys put in a lot of work and effort. A lot of check and check again and check again. So I appreciate your diligence.
And thank you for making it easy for us to understand and grasp what you're trying to do.
I think you're getting through work on that. I feel like that might be undervalued and underrated things like that this term.
It turned out to be a great achievement, I think, for this organization. We lucked out. We got some good help from the market. We did it, but and thank you to helping make that a reality. It was your decision that pushed us forward.
Well, there are a couple other communities I know who looked into POBs and moved away from them because the interest rates went up so much. So we hit the market at the right time. Next item is budget for the Board of Trustees and the Liquor Control Commission, pages 33 and 38. Increase is flat with Board of Trustees. And the same is true of the Liquor Control Commission. Questions? If not, the next would be the village clerk. Remote runs a tight ship.
And you're asking for a lot here.
Tone it down.
So budget remains flat, no increases, and we're busy.
One question, what happened with the star? The star program? What happened with it?
What?
I thought we bought that out.
We did. We transitioned. The per right cost became very
Yeah, but then we were giving people checks, like 30 some odd people.
And so then there was a grant program that we received.
Wow.
And so it was a temporary program, but we used that for a while, and that was well received as well. But there's not currently a program that we offer.
Okay, so that's,
Or has your snapshot changed over the years, or does it stay pretty constant? Like how much you process, how many people you're responding to? I mean, 11,000 general information is a lot. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Is it going up when people were home and they had more time on their hands to call?
Yeah, sometimes depends on the time also. So last couple of weeks, we are getting lots of phone calls for passports.
Interesting.
They announced that passport offices have really big backlog and their timings went up for processing. So then, plus we had schools were on vacation. So we got bombarded with passport calls and applications.
So was that an uptick, 1450 this year?
Yeah, there was uptick from last year.
But also probably COVID now.
Yeah,
We're getting
COVID.
back on planes.
Right. People started flying and going on vacations.
Voter registration numbers were lower than they had been in previous years.
Just
Yeah, because they have online facility now and, you know.
Right.
And we have 40,000 registered voters in the village.
1,000 plus.
I saw that in the voter results, yeah, which is low. Isn't it? I mean, excuse me, registered voters, what was low was how many went out to vote this last
Right,
election.
yeah. Turnout goes low.
10% of
Yeah. Yes.
Wasn't listed in your snapshot. I want to thank you for your work processing the 3 referendum petitions that came to your office in the past year, because I know that's something the clerk's
That's
office.
my job.
Well, it's something the clerk hasn't had to deal with in many decades. This, yeah, well,
The Corporation Council will be deferred to next Tuesday. Michael was unable to be with us this evening. So, John, administration.
Thank you, Mayor. So you're going to hear from a number of the directors this evening as they're part of the administration and general services budget. But specifically within the manager's office, there are 2 items we talked pretty extensively about the sustainability efforts and the sustainability coordinator that's being added this year. The team, the action team that's implementing the plan is doing a great job. Nick and Max are the co-chairs, so the sustainability manager, the public works director are the co-chairs of the group, and all of the departments are represented. And so by adding a sustainability coordinator, the intent is to add expertise specifically regarding the green initiatives. And so we'll be more efficient in achieving all of these. I mean, the number of sectors, there's 9 areas of focus within the plan. There's 43 strategies within the plan, and then there's 190 detailed actions. And so the sustainability coordinator position is proposed in order to help us be more efficient in achieving the ultimate goals of the plan, which as a reminder is to reduce community-wide greenhouse gas emissions by 35% below 2020 levels by 2030, and then to be carbon neutral by 2050. And so at this time, we feel it's important to add that sustainability coordinator position. And then also within the manager's office, there is a $50,000 request in order to implement the referendums, the 3 referendums. So that will provide the legal services and other associated services that are necessary for the implementation.
You're talking about the district.
Yes.
That's the estimate is 50,000, I thought it was gonna be.
So we're securing the legal services currently. And so some of the firms are able to do the mapping in-house, some of them are not able to. And so that's a variable. Some of the demographic data may be another variable. And so we don't have a precise number at this point, but it's the best estimate.
Okay, thank you.
There was Simmons going to join us from the changing of the guard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned the cost to redesign the village seal.
So the
It's in the report.
Yeah.
the communications team is going to talk about that, but that is an important component of the proposed budget and part of the administration section. The listening session that was conducted with the indigenous community was very telling. And so the direction is to move to a new seal, a new image. And so we'll be going through an inventory and the committee will be developing a process to develop it.
And once developed, it's going to be a cost that it should be associated with making the changes around the village because we need to change our signs, etc.
Yes.
Signs,
No, for sure. Yeah. No, it's the right move. I'm not suggesting differently. I'm just saying that there's a lot of other elements about it.
But it all doesn't have to be done at once.
No.
Right.
It's all part of the.
I'm sure there'll be like a sunset.
Sure. So we have recommended that we stop using the seal. So we're not, as for example, when you purchase refuse toters, we're not putting the current village seal
Oh, that makes
on
sense.
there. And so we're, as uniforms are being, not public safety, but because they're more rigid and standard. But if departments wear more casual shirts for their uniform, they're not putting the seal on them anymore.
Makes
So we're
sense.
being very conscious about not adding to the inventory of what we have to change out over time.
Thanks for great Joseph. Thank you.
Sure, if they've ever-
Hey, we're a good time here.
Yeah.
Oh, we just that was like the kiss of death thing.
Probably didn't think we'd be done with
You know what?
By the way, is that coffee right there?
It is fun.
And there's a snack there. too.
Oh, I'm sniffing.
It seems like a good time.
How do you take it?
Just what?
Yeah, maybe it is.
Can you recycle for me? Sure. Thank you so much.
Here. Sit down, sit down.
Oh, what a guy.
Here, you could recycle a bottle and I'll take.
There you go.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise.
Oh, okay. We want to start without having the right to do so. Good evening, everybody. As you know, the Human Resources Division has oversight over general employee-related functions and programs within the village. And that includes recruitment and compensation and benefits administration, employee relations and labor relations, and any other kind of related employee-related matters. And over the past year, we've experienced some challenges and some successes. So I just want to share a little bit of that with you. And first of all, in conjunction with a third party subject matter expert, we successfully conducted, and it's my understanding it was for the first time, a comprehensive compensation study on a review of our position classifications for our non-union positions. And while this was a massive undertaking, it was indeed a project who I believe whose time had come. It was time to do that. And working in concert with our consultant, we believe that as a result of having taken that undertaking, that we have appropriately priced for our positions within our employ, so that they are both internally equitable as well as externally competitive. Probably the greatest lesson, though, I think that we learned with the implementation of this massive project is to understand that it's not necessarily a one-time event. It is something that you have to take a look at. You have to review your positions on a regular basis, be it on an annual basis or every other year. But at some point in time, you have the responsibility to do that. And one of the greatest rewards that I saw from having implemented this program is the gratitude that the employees had for you all, because you're the ones who approved it. So the employees were very grateful. I don't know if anybody ever told you that, so I figured I'd tell you that tonight, that they were indeed grateful for it, and they did openly express that gratitude. Also, over the past year, we deployed the Employee Benefits Portal, the Employee Navigator Portal, at no cost to the village, and that was at a savings of about $20,000. We also sought to identify a ready resource for our first line supervisory staff. One of the things that we noticed is that, you know, we have employees in line level positions who are very good at their jobs. They do a great job. And so when there's time for, if we have a supervisory position available, we look to those people because they're very good at what they do, and we promote them. But we do that without helping them make that transition from being a line level employee to a first line supervisor. And there is a difference. So one of the things that we've done is we sought to identify a resource that we could use to help us train our first line supervisors. And we found one. We're going to utilize we partnered with SkillPath. They have a program called Star 12, which I've actually worked with in the past. And it's just it's a myriad of webinars that they have, and various resources, informational resources. It's great information. And so we're going to utilize that and the system is so robust that we can actually assign courses to these individual employees, and we can track whether or not they're taking the courses and completing them. And so we're really excited to do that. We've identified 24 employees who will be subject to this new program. And in addition to the courses that we'll assign, the core supervisory courses, those 10 courses, they will have access to the entire Star 12 library of courses. So they can take any course they want, from computer courses to leadership, management, whatever. I mean, and they can take advantage of as many as they want, and they'll have that subscription for one full year for a 12-month period. So I think it's going to be a really good resource for us to use. We'll see how it turns out this time next year. I'm hoping that it will be positive. That's what I expect to happen, because it's really information that they can utilize, and they can learn it, and then they can deploy it. They can actually use it. So I think
are there materials that they can keep?
Yes, there are also materials that they can download.
Yeah.
They can print and keep, and then they're like little snippets, little 2-minute informational meetings, if you will. So it's a pretty vast resource that I think is going to be good for us.
What are some of the topics?
Oh, wow, there's leadership, there are management courses, there's how to supervise, how to have difficult discussions with employees, what you need to do in making the transition from line level employee to supervisor. I want to show you. I'm not gonna call them all out, but here are the courses.
Anything related to like bias and identity
DEI,
and gender?
Yeah.
Actually, there may very well be some of those courses in here as well. That I'm telling you, it's everything in here. Some of the courses that we were looking to just find as core courses was strictly related to supervision and leadership.
Okay.
And because we think that that's the most critical thing for them in their role. But there's certainly courses, there's listening, there's practical application, how to coach, there's common emotional intelligence mistakes, feeling you have been the target of implicit bias, communicating with tact and finesse, communication impact.
We should all take it.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
it's
can't-
just,
I don't think you can
I'm
take
telling
on
you,
any
this is some
course
good stuff.
today that we need to
What
close
about
it.
diplomacy?
Yeah.
What about documentation?
Well, see, that's one of the things that's in here too, but that's one of the things that they're not only going to participate and complete the webinars, but they're also going to meet with human resources so that we can go over the HR policies so that they are very familiar, at least familiar with it and understand that. Documentation is one of the things that we're going to talk about. So yeah, it's
great.
Fantastic.
I'm excited about it.
Couldn't tell.
You can tell. Okay. I know. And one of the other things, because this had come up too, in one of our meetings, we're also seeking to establish groups, affinity groups, if you will, or groups with common interest. And one of the things that I did is reached out to some of the members of the equity team to see if they have some interest in it, and lo and behold, they do. So we're going to get together and see what we can do in that regard. Some of the topics that have come up is women in the workplace. So we're going to actually look at that. And then another one was religion, interestingly. So we will see where we stand with regard to that, but that's something too. That's another undertaking that I want to do. And what else do I have here? Okay, I think that's it. But you know, with the groups, it'll be that's going to carry over, of course, into fiscal year 24, and hopefully on an ongoing basis. So we'll see. Have any other questions for you?
I remember, first, thank you again for all your work. It sounds like this program is going to invite an opportunity to get some PD, you know, so that's awesome. I remember, I think last year we talked about just kind of the diversity of the staff in general, and just wondered if there were any differences that you've seen through the year.
Do you mean in terms of hiring or just
hiring? Yes, hiring, leadership, advancements.
Yeah,
all of that.
I think that's an area that we still have some work to do in. But the village is taking strides to make that change, to make that shift. I think one of the things that we have to consider is that, you know, for many of the positions, we review the candidates based upon who actually applies for it. So sometimes we don't get a diverse population applying for our positions. And it's not because we haven't tried to make it known to them that we have positions. I mean, we post in all the minority postings, minority sites. We are posted, of course, on our own website. We're posted internally, and as candidates apply, they certainly get full consideration. But that is one of the things that we have to do on the HR end. We can push for that because we're the keeper of those resumes. They come to us, so that's something we can do in terms of ensuring diversity. We can certainly push to do that, and we are, and we'll continue to do that. However, I think, you know, I started to talk about the groups, the types of groups, that deals with inclusion. And that's a little bit different in that that's something that the entire village has to participate in. It can't just be the HR department can't do that. I think that's a mindset that has to be a part of the entire village employee population.
And I know that's going to take work.
And it takes time.
What do you need from us to support your efforts? And developing partnerships, with Oakdale. Like there's so many different creative ways because the old traditional ways clearly aren't working.
Yeah.
So anything that's innovative, more creative like whatever we can do to support that, you know, there's the challenge.
You're open to do that, okay.
And I don't want to speak for my colleagues.
No, I agree with you. Anything that we could be really supportive, just tap our shoulders, so to speak.
Okay. We may well do that.
And maybe it
Dream,
is
dream.
participating with this, with the staff that works within this building, so to speak, or within the village. To know that we're human beings too, to be part of these inclusion meetings. I'd love to participate and for people to see us. Yeah, I mean, why should it just, we're technically employees also. Right, we're staff, right?
Yeah, we're not employees.
I know, I'm saying, we're technically, why shouldn't we be part of these discussions? I don't think it should be a them and an us, just even in terms of how people look at trustees, I don't like it. I would love to participate in more of the staff programs.
So even the school district, I know there's, you know, the career pathways programs.
Yeah.
That is a direct connection to criminal justice and police and fire. Like there's I mean, we can grow our own. So just, you know, look in our backyard.
Public safety is participating with the Niles Township upcoming event, and so they have a strong presence at the equivalent.
That's wonderful.
One of the problems you're going to run into is as soon as you start including the elected officials, members of the staff very well might start claiming up.
Oh,
Whether you
have to make, that's a very
expect
good
it or
point.
not,
You're right.
they are going to be very deferential to you.
That's true. You have to make that assessment and that's a very good
That's, I mean,
point. Very, very
I-
good.
and that's not a comment on
Yeah, no.
any of us, but
It's the nature of the business.
well, you are in a different category.
Yeah.
You're the ultimate boss.
No, it's a good point.
I've seen it happen where they clean them up, and then I've seen it happen where they don't stop talking. I've seen both sides of that equation when we're in the mess.
Yeah.
And it could
I think
be
it's
even-
humanizing the
Yeah,
positions.
yeah.
I think you need to do an internal kind of assessment, you know,
Yes.
but a couple people that you trust and just get their opinion. If people feel it's detrimental, then of course it's not good.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Or if there is another way to utilize your services, as opposed to being a part of the group, maybe you could be a guest speaker.
So just tell us what we can do to help.
Thank you.
But I like to think about what Keith's saying about, and we talked about this last year, like how to get our young people, our diverse young people of all these different languages,
More engaged.
yeah, more involved and wanting to work for the village. We have our one good example of the person who started out as a community officer and worked himself all the way up to,
Macomb.
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
But-
Eric,
But
yeah.
we need like 60 of those.
Yeah.
And we, you know, how we can get people, all the ways we can, all the different groups there are out there to know that there's opportunity there.
I have a hard time filling the summer positions. And
Yeah.
So on the village's website, there are all the summer positions posted, and so if you can send them out in your respective worlds, it would be helpful. And so that's one way for people
It's a great idea.
And
to be exposed.
And
to
that's
local-
unusual. We usually have more applications than we can fill,
Yeah,
right?
but since COVID, it's been,
Yeah.
had a hard time.
That's just the restaurants and every other industry saying that they can't get people.
If that's the case, people don't want to work anymore after COVID.
Right,
It
that is the crack.
I mean, really, that's what it goes down to.
Yeah. I
Now
understand.
you got something to get Patrick.
Yeah, but thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your work.
You can't turn trees remotely.
Guess not.
No, that is the problem.
No, it is true.
The summer, I mean, it's physical work.
It's not even physical. I mean, nobody wants to report anywhere.
Yeah, but we used to have people who wanted to be,
Thank you.
who would bang on our doors.
Every
Yeah,
year.
but
Different
we
world.
were inundated, you know.
we need, in my own office, I need an administrative assistant. People would not apply because it was in person. We don't want to put officers.
Has everybody met Patrick?
No,
Patrick, introduce yourself.
I'm Patrick Deckman, I'm the new Director of Communications and Community Engagement. Today's my first day, so very nice to meet you. Yeah, I come here from the last 9 years with the City of Evansville.
welcome.
Since he's only been here for about 8 hours now, I will be presenting today for the Communications and Community Engagement. So this year's been a busy year. We concentrated our efforts on creating a true social media strategy that included upgrading our graphics and messaging and increasing frequency and regularity of posting. In addition, we merged the Shop Local Skokie and Downtown Skokie Facebook pages into one new branded account called Explore Skokie, which is going to focus on the dining, retail, cultural, and events available throughout the village of Skokie. In addition, we added an Instagram account for Explore Skokie. Instagram tends to skew a little bit younger in their demographics, and our Skokie businesses are very, very active on Instagram, so it was important that we had a presence there. And we also created a regular Happening This Week in Skokie feature that debuts every Monday that showcases the events that are happening around town. Moving on to Skokie News, we recently redesigned Skokie News to present a more professional looking layout, utilizing the Village of Skokie logo instead of the colorful Downtown Skokie logo, and using the two green color scheme. Longer articles are now shortened to a teaser with a link for residents to view the full content on our website. And the benefits of that are threefold. One is that it necessitates less scrolling. Those previous editions were kind of long and the reader had to really scroll to get through all of it. We can also then track the click-through to see where the residents' interest lies. So we can see which articles they are clicking through and reading and which aren't getting as much attention. And finally, it teaches the residents of information to be found on the website. Skokie News comes out once a week and people read it and then delete it from their inbox. So a few days later, if they can't remember what exactly it was they read, they'll know that the information is on the website for them to access. We created a communications plan that was strategic for our once weekly refuse collection and drop-off composting rollout. We began prior to the announcement of the rollout with educating the public as to the benefits of the transition to once weekly collection. And then we ensured that the announcement of the transition date coincided with the announcement for free drop-off composting. And that was really to make sure that residents realized we weren't reducing services, but we were just changing services to include the drop-off composting. We distributed an FAQ to staff members that was also posted on the website and given to members of SEAC to act as our ambassadors to ensure that we were all giving the same information to the public and we weren't contradicting each other. And then we followed the announcement of the transition with articles and social media posts addressing some of the concerns that we were hearing, whether it be about a fear of an increase in rats or concern about their toters overflowing, educating them with the proper way to dispose of the various items. And I'm happy to note that the majority of online public complaints that I've seen, whether it be on Nextdoor or Instagram or in the Skokie parent group, any of those complaints were addressed and corrected by other residents. So we did not have to step in as the village because the residents that were being educated through our different communication outlets were stepping in to address the erroneous complaints and fears. On the website, we created a sustainability subsite to share updates on the sustainability plan progress. Current news items are linked if they reflect part of the sustainability plan, they're linked on those pages. In addition, each sector has all of their action items listed and those are updated quarterly. So each of the active items is either listed as future, in progress, or completed. And that's really to provide all of the stakeholders with up-to-date information and to keep those of us here in the village accountable that we're moving along on all of these. In addition, the boards and commission pages and the posting of agendas and minutes have been standardized. This actually came from a resident comment during a board meeting where she mentioned that she was having trouble figuring out which was the agenda and where were the minutes and all of that. And I was sitting there and I was like, you know what, she's not wrong. And so I've worked with each of the staff liaisons to ensure that their agenda and minutes are getting posted in the same way. And I'm creating a guide for all of them to follow to maintain that consistency and ensure that it keeps going on. Video production, we've produced 4 long form videos and there's another one in the works for police recruiting. We've released multiple short reel videos to market things like Downtown Skokie Trick or Treat, Small Business Week, Earth Month, and various businesses. Community engagement. Fine Arts Commission hosted the Love Lost and Found storytelling event in February and the Student and Outstanding Artist Recognition exhibit and open house in March. The mayor was a big celebrity at that exhibit. The students were all very excited that the mayor was there and that they got to get their picture taken with him. We created the Skokie community-wide garage sale, which is going to be June 2nd through 4th. We've gotten a very heavy early interest from the public about that, so we're excited to do that. And we've also published 4 editions of New Skokie, which were mailed to over 27,000 homes. So that was that last year. This year, Patrick and I have been talking about some of our goals for this year. One of them, I know that you discussed it a little bit earlier, the Skokie Village Seal Review. As you know, there are documented harmful effects of Native American mascots and imagery on both the Native and general population. And so the Committee of Community Stakeholders invited members of the Indigenous community to attend a listening session. It was held both in person and online, and for them to discuss their thoughts about the seal. And upon review of the summary report, the committee quickly came to the consensus that the village seal is not appropriate and that a process to phase it out and replace it with something more appropriate should begin immediately. And so that is something that we will be undertaking here in the village very, very soon. In addition, with the retirement of our previous director who had been here for 24 years, it really gives Patrick and I an opportunity. I've been here 6 months, Patrick's been here 6 hours. So it gives us an opportunity to review the current operations of the department and make sure we're employing the latest in best practices and technology. One of the things we've discussed is creating an editorial calendar to allow for more strategic story development, similar to what we did with the rollout of once weekly refuse collection. Developing a communication policy to be utilized village-wide, which would include a graphic and brand standards and a style guide to ensure that we're being consistent in our communications. And then to build an online searchable graphic library that members of the village would be able to access from their offices to find photos that they could utilize in their own communications to make sure that we are representing the village and its beauty in its best fashion. We also want to complete a review of the village website to determine whether a redesign and reorg is necessary. We want to continue to expand social media and video production. And then also when COVID happened, the in-person community engagement events ceased. And so, and they've been kind of slow to come back. And so Patrick and I want to put our heads together and really brainstorm and come up with some ideas to bring the community both informationally, but also to bring the community together and have some fun. So, does anybody have any questions?
I did notice that people are still struggling with what to put in the compost bin. Somebody mentioned it in a meeting, and I also had friends who asked me, you know, so as much education as we've done, I still feel like we still need to do more.
Yes.
Education and probably forever we'll be doing it. But, you know, just so people know what goes where.
Yeah, we will have a postcard that is going to be going out in the next week or so to all households in the village, just to make sure that everyone knows that May 1st we are transitioning to once weekly refuse. And on the front of that postcard, it talks about how to dispose of different items, including a list of what is compostable, what is recyclable, what needs to go into the trash and that thing. So we will be continuing that.
Because somebody at Starbucks stopped me and said, how am I supposed to take it from my house? And this is the same question I get a lot of times. From my house to the bin. You know, what am I supposed to put it in? If it's coffee grounds, I'm not going to put it in a paper bag that it's going to go through. Mm-hmm. So they need to understand, like, if they can buy something or if we're giving away something or.
Yeah, they have a number of options.
Yeah.
A lot of people seem to like some type of Tupperware or device like that they keep in the refrigerator and they fill it up, and then once it's of the compostable material, and then once it's full, they take it to the drop-off locations and then they just reuse that. There are bags that are compostable. They're made out of corn, and so they're easy to buy online. But you know, so that's one methodology that people are using. There are going to be some giveaways from Public Works as well, and so it's really up to individuals or families to decide how are they going to gather it in the house, and then how do they either get it to the container with the curbside pickup because the village implemented that rebate program, or if they're going to bring it to the free drop-off.
I think they just need more information.
Mm-hmm. And we do have a get ready composting flyer that is posted on the website, but we can publicize that more as well to make sure that people understand.
Well, I want a flyer to walk around my neighborhood to get them.
Okay.
Old school.
Yeah.
Are you considering thinking in the back of your mind about eliminating the printed newsletter, just going electronic? Before you answer, keep in mind I'm a printer.
We discussed it, I think, with personally with the demographics in Skokie. There are still people that aren't comfortable online. There are people that aren't following our social media, aren't comfortable coming to the website. So I think at least for the foreseeable future, we'll maintain the printed newsletter.
You said about 4,000.
We
4 times a year.
4 times a year to 27,000 homes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the 4 times a year is reduced from, what was it, 8 and then 6. So we have cut back quite a bit. But there are some people, I can tell you that I don't live here in Skokie, but my husband does not follow any of our community's online resources. But when we get our little newsletter, he likes to sit there and, you know, kind of flip through. So I do think there is a benefit to that for now.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding what you said about videos, going back to people not understanding what's recyclable, I hate to say it, I think people are very visual. And you talked about doing videos. I really think you need to do a tutorial, like, you know, like for dummies, like the book. I don't mean it in a rude way to anybody. I'm one of them. I recycled wrong for a long time. I think a tutorial that's physical that you could see, not being told or have to read. People look at videos. We do that on Google if you're trying to figure out how to fix something in your home, right? So why not do that? This is what you can recycle. This is how you can do this. The idea that you just gave about the Tupperware, someone could show that on the video. Oh, wow, what a great idea. I could do that. That's easy. Now I'll start doing it. I think that people are very visual.
Absolutely, and now that we're a full team,
yeah.
We are definitely looking at, there've been 3 videos produced about building a sustainable village, one of them being how to recycle properly, and it is definitely in the plans to pick that back up again, and an instruction for composting.
And then what you said about the newsletter, which I like that you're doing it, shorter paragraphs, and then if you want, you can click, and yes, you can then, you know, gauge how many clicks you're getting. It's also unfortunate the world has changed. Speaking hashtags and Twitter, and nobody reads anything anymore. So the shorter the message, the better the opportunity that you get your message out there, as you know. So I support what you're doing. Thank you.
But I just want to say one thing about that.
I do read that.
Charlie Sachs and I met with Bill Kenny from Lakeshore Recycling because we were mostly Charlie was concerned. Are we recycling properly? So I talked to Mr. Kenny and he said, we're doing good. So I says, what's good? I don't know good, you know. So I said, 1 to 10, what are we? He says, oh, you're a solid 7. So we're not doing so bad. They're happy with us. I mean, we're happy. Our people are learning. Our people are doing good.
It is good to know.
Yeah.
The more information, the better we'll.
Yeah, but I'm saying, that's his number, not mine.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, their recycling facilities, their sorting facility is amazing as far as being able to sort out the
plastic bags.
non-recyclables and the plastic
He
bags.
told me he's
and-
not afraid of them anymore.
Yeah.
They got something that just plucks them out.
Yeah, so I mean, even then, when there is some recycling that is not 100% correct, you're not fouling the entire
Yeah.
Keith?
But I always want to start by saying thank you for all of your efforts.
Thank you.
Just had a couple of wonderings. One, I know with some of the newest or the assessment of the material that's going out, I'm hoping that there's consideration for different languages. So just something to note there. I would love to see a series of commissions. Like, what do they do? Who are they? What's the goal? Just to educate the community. There's a lot of confusion about processes and how to get involved. So just really trying to be transparent with how local government works. And even some of the positions in departments, just like this video series or a new series about scoping. This is how things work. But then just to kind of piggyback on what you said, Allison, different modes of learning. Some people are audio, some people are visual. Some people need to, see it differently and work with it differently. So really, hitting the different modes of learning, if you will. And then I wrote down TikToks.
Oh, please don't have anything.
Listen, you got the Instagram, the Facebooks, the TikToks. You're talking about a video series. You can do a 30-second video series of what to do and what not to do, and it's gone.
I can tell you that in my interview, a village TikTok was on my list with some of the government complaints about TikTok and confusion. I held back on starting that, but short reels and short videos are definitely definitely the way to go.
Yeah. That's all I had.
I told her as long as John and I don't have to dance, we're all.
Maybe
I
that's
think
something
we
you
can
need
raise
to do.
money watching.
Well, that's
Maybe that's something to do with the mayor.
That's what the trustees do,
John's
we can
promise.
dance.
Yeah.
There you go. You
There you go.
about as wireless the police department did.
Well, I'll volunteer to dance.
There you go.
So we'll promote, I want to see it.
But I mean, there's clever ways,
Yeah.
there's a clever way of communicating. And, as an educator, I'm always saying, let's focus on the youth. Speak their language. They're the ones who are correcting their parents and their grandparents.
Also, if you have an adorable child doing the video, everybody will share it because look how cute they are. It's a better way of messaging. If they can recycle, then of course I can.
But it also goes along with what we were talking about too. We're trying to get more diversity for people to work at the Village of Skokie, and so all of these things feed into each other to show opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Patrick.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That was the best 6 hours I've ever seen.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
luck.
luck.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Mayor, trustees, village manager, assistant village manager, and village clerk. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to start by briefly discussing what took place over the past year within the IT department. The IT department had several accomplishments and achievements. The achievements in technology over the past year have been truly impressive, and I'm excited to highlight a few of them for you today. IT department deployed a state-of-the-art networking storage technology solution. With the growth of digital information, there has been a constant need for more efficient and reliable ways to store and manage information. With the introduction of the new data storage array, we were able to store more information with less space and provide greater security. As the side benefit of this NAS device, and consistent with the village efforts to be as green as energy conscious as possible, those devices decrease electrical energy consumption by 6-fold. In addition, those devices contain mechanisms and are designed to help protect data from ransomware, preventing bad actors from modifying, encrypting any of the village of Skoki's data. Another major development that I would like to highlight is the progress being made in sustainability printing equipment. As we are more conscious on our impact on the environment, it has become increasingly important to find new ways to reduce waste and conserve resources. The new eco printers represent a significant step forward in this regard by using less energy, generating less waste, and utilizing recycled materials. The technology not only benefits the environment, but also helps reduce the operational cost of the village. The IT department worked on upgrades and improvements to our networking circuits, introduced and implemented an innovative platform to streamline the renewal of various online permits. The software has improved our organization's efficiency by reducing payment processing times, minimizing errors, and enabling residents to make payments at their convenience. To improve the business community interactions with the village, IT helped with the deployment of the online business license renewal website. To provide reliable protection to critical data, the IT department implemented a cloud-based comprehensive backup service. Data is being replicated to an off-site location, providing an added layer of protection against disasters such as fires, floods, or cyber attacks. To enable innovative workforce, IT also scheduled and hosted a series of refresher courses for enterprise resource planning, as we call ERP, as well as training classes for document management system. The ERP software solution is the software solution for virtually every aspect of municipal management, including such modules as payroll, accounting, human resources, licenses, and the like. So the ERP is being used on a daily basis by many of the village employees to perform their duties. Due to the training grant that I was able to secure, those classes were provided at no cost to the village. The technology department also played an integral role in the installation of the body-worn camera systems utilized by the police department and the configuration and deployment of various software and hardware systems throughout the village. To minimize the threat of many of the cyber risks, IT implemented serious cybersecurity measures to safeguard our data and systems from threats, including network penetration assessments, hardware upgrades, and employee cybersecurity awareness trainings. Information technology provides 24/7 operations support for police, fire, and communication departments. IT has contributed to organizational strategic goals, providing valuable insights and recommendations to improve our operations and reduce costs. We have worked closely with other departments, providing technical support, training, and guidance on various projects. In December of 2022, the IT department successfully onboarded a new hire, an IT systems analyst position with specific skill sets to enhance various software packages used within the village and its departments. Again, all of this is designed with the efficiency of our employees in mind, as well as the ease of public interaction with the village. During the upcoming fiscal year, one of the most noteworthy initiatives to be implemented is the replacement of the existing firewall with a cutting-edge and highly secure system. This upgrade is crucial for ensuring the security and protection of the sensitive data and systems used village-wide. With the constant threat from cyber attacks, it is essential the organization remains proactive in protecting its assets. By investing in this latest and most advanced networking hardware, the village can greatly reduce the risk of security breaches and potential data loss. Furthermore, this upgrade will also allow the village of Skokie to adapt to evolving technology needs and security threats with greater flexibility. Overall, the replacement of the firewall will represent a significant step forward in our organization's commitment to maintaining the highest level of security and protections for its valuable assets. The technology department will also play an essential role in the upgrade of EDAC system. The document management system, as we call it, DMS, is a software solution that stores, manages, and tracks documents, ensuring they are easily accessible, secure, and up to date. This upgrade will offer improved document search capabilities, allowing users to find documents quickly and provide collaboration between users. Moving forward, the IT department is extremely aware of increased number of attempted security hacks involving banks, retail, businesses, corporations, and municipalities. Cyber attacks must be at the forefront of all our concerns. IT will continue to research and propose solutions to prevent possibility of any data breaches or corruptions. The technology that is expected to shape the future is the Microsoft Power Apps. So Power Apps is a type of software that allows users to easily create custom applications. This technology, combined with artificial intelligence, has a potential to transform the way the village will operate in the future. With AI, Power Apps can be designed to perform complex tasks, such as analyzing large data sets and predicting future outcomes. So by focusing on enhancing current technology, improving the user experience, maintaining security, and being innovative will allow us to be at the forefront of this ever-evolving field. Any questions?
I just have to give you a thank you. I mean, more times than I care to admit, I take my laptop, mostly on a Friday, because we get our packets on a Thursday, and I sneak into his office and said, help. So thank you for all the help you made with me.
Thank you for what you do.
Tomas is incredibly innovative.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much.
we're very fortunate to have this service with the IT division.
Very
Only
good.
we understood what you were doing.
I am concerned about cyber attacks. So I don't understand what you do, but I'm
So-
glad you're on top of it.
On top of it, we have security measures built in, such as immutable backups. So it takes a few number of individuals to even files to be even deleted or encrypted. So if somebody does something bad, it takes 2 IT personnel and actually a vendor to delete that file. So we're pretty protected.
Actually, I was a question. Is the staff that works for the village, are they, they take a course on phishing? So that they
Yes.
know that there are emails that you shouldn't be opening, that
It's
they
better.
don't feel.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we actually send out phishing emails to all the employees and we track it. So we do have a software built in. We can tell who clicked. We know who the clickers are.
Oh,
We approach them.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Yes,
And then
that's
we have training
probably the
classes.
worst offense is really
Correct.
phishing.
That's a class I take.
Oh, we have to take it at work.
what about like the finance department with people's information, you know, identity theft and all that stuff?
And I work closely and we take this step as pretty trained as well now with to look for. And, we all know which were the keywords when it comes to some of those phishing emails and, you know, please change my account to this.
And if I had a dime for every time the mayor has emailed me asking me to send a gift card. Yeah.
That's good.
Like I
If
said, it's
successful,
ever-
I'm gonna start asking.
much of all-
Well, my identity was stolen and it was because of Vicky that I found out. Because
Oh,
somebody,
that's right. I got one. Yeah.
no, my identity was stolen, not an email. My identity was stolen.
Remember that time somebody asked me for money? It wasn't you.
Yeah. But,
It's a scary world, you gotta be very
Yeah.
careful.
so thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're the only one that got an ovation.
Thank you.
If nobody else understands what you done.
Keep us in the dark.
My name's Julian Brandy.
Yeah. Why did they make you wait around all night and then come back? What's that about? Oh, you insist? Okay.
But at the risk of overstaying my welcome, I'm going to say as little as possible. So feel free to ask any questions you have. The finance budget specifically is just under 1.2 million. Don't really get the award for flash and innovation.
No, but you decreased, you should get an award for that.
We are in the grind of it, but we're very dedicated staff. We are facing some challenges staff-wise. I think this is the first time since I've been with the department that we have 3 retirements happening all at once. Combined 100+ years of experience, just walking out the door in the next 2 or 3 months. So we're working closely with HR to replace those positions. But it'll look like a different finance department when come August, July or August. But other than that, we do work closely with IT on wire fraud and financial fraud. We have, again, been target of several attempts. And when I say the mayor, it's really not the mayor. Yeah, I'm trying to clarify that for the recording. It's folks pretending to be the mayor that ask for gift cards to be shipped to Nigeria, right? But we do have a good team with IT, and we constantly get exposed to trade organizations, so the GFOA, the Government Finance Officer Association. They also have a section of training materials that we utilize regularly to sort of keep up with what's new and what's happening. It is not just wire fraud, ACH fraud. Some of the typical methods that these fraudsters try is they'll pretend to be another vendor, a legitimate vendor, and send you new banking information. Say, can you please update this for me? Most recently, we had an instance where a check was snagged from the mail of a legitimate vendor. It was washed, and it was cashed by a third party, which it has not happened in years. Check wash, checks have protections built in, and we confirm check numbers with a bank. So for some reason, this particular entity was very good at what they did. It was a very small amount, and we have enough protection that we recovered the funds. But it was amazing that we're looking at maintaining a wire fraud and ACH fraud cleaning up, and someone goes back to the old ways to try something. But regardless, that's to say that we try to stay on top of all of those.
Can you tell us a little bit about the audits, the tax audits you're going to do?
Sure. So this is an expense that we have sort of put away for the pandemic. We really didn't go after any particular revenue source or business. We are bringing that back. We've had some challenges in the past finding a vendor or an outside firm that we can hire to do audits. Most of our local taxes have provisions in the code, as you're aware, that allow for us to go back for a period of 3 years and just confirm that the returns that we've received actually match the businesses or the financial institutions' records. And we intend to do that. We just completed one in-house for our local fuel tax. We have, I think, 22 or 23 gas stations in town, and our staff did a local tax audit of those. Pleased to report that there's nothing strange happening there. The reason why we targeted that first is because revenue has dropped in the local fuel tax, and my concern was that there's some issue, either we're missing a gas station or someone is not reporting correctly, but we did confirm that it's just a matter of hundreds going down to it. What we're trying to do for the next year is localized, and we're targeting food and beverage this year because of some restaurants that come online are not. It's someone who just an idea and they get help and they put in a restaurant together. Not all of them are professionals, to say the least. So part of our intent is to sort of take a snapshot of our several hundred list of restaurants and then do an audit of their past 12 months of returns, confirm that they're A, applying the tax correctly to the appropriate product, and B, that they're reporting and paying correctly. So we anticipate between 15 and 20 year after year.
On top of that, we're looking at possibly doing utility tax audits for NICOR and ComEd. Those are a little more complicated. That's where we really have trouble finding a firm that will actually take that on. Not that there's none of them. The problem is the ones that are there want to keep about 40 to 50% of all the recovered funds. And that just hasn't sounded appropriate to us. So we continue to work with that. But this 20,000 is essentially to hire a local CPA from whoever is willing to do the work. Then we're talking about 15, 20 local businesses and review their 12 months worth of tax returns.
How long has the MFT been reducing?
So the MFT, we went through a period of MFT reductions going back 10 years. And that was slowly declining year after year. And I don't recall, Mayor, if it was 2021 or 2020 when the state essentially doubled the local fuel tax collected. At that point, we got a boost in revenue in the MFT fund. And since then, we really have not seen the downward trend in the MFT. Very rarely, less than 1% year after year. It just seemed that the local fuel tax, our gas stations are experiencing. Whereas for MFT, we collect a share of total pumpage throughout the state. The state gives us an allocation per capita. Our local fuel stations are experiencing declines in gallons pumped at those facilities. And that's been going on since implementation. I don't think we had 1 year where we actually exceeded the target.
As people and businesses and institutions go the real carbon-based transportation to hybrid to electric, the MFT inevitably is going to decline.
Absolutely, yes, and the worst impact portion of our spending is street servicing. Again, so the discussion we'll have to have as we transition to a cleaner transportation economy. The way we fund street resurfacing and capital today is primarily through fuel taxes, and with that revenue source dwindling in the future, we will have to reinvent and revise.
For tomorrow.
That's all I had on finance, and then the other fund section covers the pensions and debt and IMRF. I don't know that there's anything worthy of note. Since the POPs were in place, there's really not much that has changed in those funds. I do want to remind the board that both pension funds plan for cost of living adjustments year after year, which are prescribed in state law at a fixed 3%. And so essentially it's just taking the number of pensioners and multiplying 3% by the amount of pensions from the prior year. That's what you see here in pension funding. There's a little bit of fee adjustment too, which are customary year after year. But other than that, nothing worthy of note in the other fund section on this year.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Drive. Well, sir, your car. Yeah. A motion to go into executive session for a discussion of wage and benefits. Motion. Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Who made first and second?
Johnson.